Hello friends, Ruben here. Hi. How's it going? Today I want to celebrate my friend Bill O'Donnell. Bill O'Donnell is his name. Bombastic Bill is what nobody ever actually calls him to his face. While I'm at a convention lugging, sometimes literally hundreds of boxes for a dealer, it has its benefits. I'm not complaining. But meanwhile, Bill is across the room and he's wrangling for artists. He's wrangling lines and he's otherwise facilitating the experience for artists, helping them out, collecting money, and at the same time building an amazing collection of Comic-Con sketches. And anyway, Bill is such a good guy that recently, a few weeks ago, he was heading out to a show in Brazil, and he's like, "Well, do you want me to bring you something from Brazil?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy. How about some, Brazilian Portuguese comics?" He's like, "Well, sure, I can do that." And so he did. And I'm going to show you what he brought me right about now, because it's very interesting stuff, I think. Anyway, as it turns out, according to Bill, he claims that up until recently, almost all or most of the comics were in digest size. And here's one. This is Super Aventuras Marvel. It's an anthology series. It's number 27. By the way, it costs 900 whatever money they have down in Brazil. But there's a listing on the side there. Is that where it is? Yeah, where there are certain areas where it's 1,200 things. So I guess some people are glad to live in some parts of Brazil than others. So it is an anthology of Marvel stuff. The date on it is in 1984. So there are some contemporary comics from then and some stuff that's a bit older. Not much older, but a little older. So the cover, obviously, is Daredevil 181. That's obviously very familiar to me and to many readers of Marvel back in the better days. So right away, this is very curious because when I opened it up, and I didn't think that page was in the original Daredevil 181, and of course it isn't. It seems to be Murdoch at the gravesite of Elektra. Spoiler warning. But it gets more interesting when I open the next page. That this is the splash page to Daredevil 181 here. But then I look at the credits, and I don't know if you can see them there, if it's focused enough, but it says that the inks are by Terry Austin. Now, of course, again, I remember those very well, and as far as I knew, Terry Austin only inked issue 191, another very classic specific comic. But so I thought it might have been a mistake, but it turns out it's not, because I had occasion to dig out. Sadly, I no longer have an original Daredevil 181 in my collection, but I have a collection of it, and I dug that out, and it seems that this book was in fact inked. This version was in fact inked by Terry Austin. I should have planned this out better, but the original comic was inked by Janson. So, you can see that there are some differences there in the style of inking. Look at Elektra's face there. They also juggle around some panels, obviously, and the whole story in this book was inked by Austin instead of Janson. Look at her standing there. There are some very distinct differences in what's going on there. So I don't know. The whole thing, it's only an excerpt also of 181. There's only a few pages of it with another framing sequence that isn't in the original comics at all. So it's very curious that this version was inked by Terry Austin even back then than the version that we saw on stands here in the US by Klaus Janson. I'd be curious to know if the complete series, if there is, or how much of it they did, was inked by Austin instead of Janson here. It's just very curious, I think. So, blah, blah, blah. There you go with that. Hey, look, there's an ad for Atari Force by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. Remember that? That was a DC thing, but I guess it doesn't matter. It's a licensed thing. Then there is a Power Man feature. Steve Englehart and is it Billy Graham? George Tuska, and inked by Billy Graham. I wasn't sure what it was, but I flipped through a little bit and I saw good old Dr. Doom. So that means it's Hero for Hire number 9. Remember that? Doctor Destino. There he is in all his Nazi glory. Following that is an issue. This is really good. It's a great collection. There is an issue of Black Panther versus the Klan, by the way. Isn't that wonderful? It's Don McGregor and Billy Graham. Curious. I can't read it. I can make out some of the stuff, but I can't read it. And of course, Don McGregor is known very well for writing a lot of very introspective captions. And I don't know if they could capture the flavor of what he did then, or who knows, you know. I mean, I don't know anybody who reads Portuguese. Hey, there's an ad for Barry Smith's Conan. That's pretty cool too. And then following that is rounding out the issue with another gorgeous comic book from back then. It's Master of Kung Fu by Doug Moench and Mike Zeck. That's got to be like in the 80s, I think, number 80s. Just gorgeous art, of course. I don't know if any of you people read any of these old books. They were terrific. There was a wonderful period there when Marvel was, you know, firing on all cylinders. So that's a pretty cool collection. Evidently, these features were the regular features with this title. And wouldn't that be a nice thing to be able to collect somehow? But anyway, I'm glad to have this. Thank you, Bill. It's a sweet thing to have in my collection. Also, he brought me, look out! He brought me a issue of Red Sonja, or just Sonja, as it, right? I'm looking at it backwards. It's driving me nuts. I'm not sure who did the cover, but it's what she was wearing during, I think right after the movie, which I've never seen. There were some issues. There were a 4-issue series and a 6-issue series, I believe. And that's what she was wearing then. This is Tom DeFalco and Dave Simons. Tom DeFalco and Dave Simons. I don't remember these comics very well. I wasn't that thrilled. There's also some issues in the back by Mary Wilshire. I forget who wrote those, and I suppose I could look it up. But look at the time running there. There is a limited time for these videos, isn't there? And I got a few others to show you. Anyway, it's fun stuff. I'm glad I have them. And I'm also very glad I have them. Then there is an issue of Tex. Tex, I told Bill, he didn't know, but you know what? I didn't know until recently either, is actually a long-running Italian franchise. I only know about it because last year I found a hardcover by Joe Kubert that was fucking gorgeous. And well, this is number 445, so presumably it's been running a very long time. I don't know what the frequency of these things were there, but it's in black and white. And there's very detailed art in it. I mean, there's a lot of spotting, but it's also pretty cool, moody details and backgrounds there. And it's a Western, of course, obviously. And I mean, it looks a lot of fun. I'm going to give it a shot at some point and try to figure out if I can just figure out the story. I mean, if they did the job, I can figure out what's happening just from looking at the art, if the artist did his job. But also, I can make out some ideas from the Portuguese is somewhat similar to Spanish, similar enough that I can usually make out the intent, the writer's intent when you blah, 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 blah. For example, I was looking at the back of this one. There's an ad in the back of this comic for a Tex. And the first sentence is Tex and Jack Tiger discover blah, 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 tribe who sacrifice young native women's in macabre rituals. So I can figure some of it out. This one is Zagor, presumably. And again, it's in black and white. It's a very moody comic, more of a horror comic. And I believe that I figured out just a moments ago that this was also an Italian comic. I forget how I figured that out. Something. I don't know. I looked at something. I'm Columbo, baby. That's number 147. So running a little longer than that Marvel stuff too. And also, I think it's later also. So presumably some of those Marvel books were still running concurrently with this somewhat later. Anyway, 2013. Check that out. So also he brought me some, it turns out I don't think I have any actual comics native to Brazil. Not a knock on Bill. I'm very glad he brought me these at all. The other things he brought me was obviously this is easy. It's a New 52 Swamp Thing. I've never read any New 52 comics, but now I own one. No, I mean, I own a couple. They've come to me. But it's Swamp Thing. I don't know if I'll ever actually look at the American versions of these. But look, it's the Aquaman. The Aquaman is in there. Hello, I'm Aquaman. And so stuff goes on. I mean, the art's nice. Stuff going on there. A little air battle with some dude. Oh, look, he ripped them up pretty good there. Also, even more recent is a Rebirth Harley Quinn, Arlequina, with a sketch cover, which is covering a gorgeous, very pretty cover by Amanda Conner there. Hey, look, somebody tried to take a bite out of crime, as it were. So it's obviously a fairly recent, well, number 7 here. I don't know if that coincides. Harley Quinn from Rebirth, Renacimiento. You know what I'm saying? There's also a really nice back cover there. This by Frank Cho of Harley and Power Girl. Good golly, yeah. It looks like there's two stories in here, maybe 2 issues, and there are ads, of course, for more contemporary DC Comics there. There's even a list in the back of other books that they're doing. The Action Comics is just Action Comics, but some of the others have, titles that are in Portuguese, like Esquadrão Suicida. That's obviously Suicide Squad. Exterminador, I bet it's Deathstroke. And, there's Liga de Justicia. Oh, I don't know. The pronunciation of some of the letters will be different in Portuguese. Lanternas Verdes, that's too easy. But Mujer... Oh, that's a woman. Okay, Maravilla. Oh, wait. Wonder Woman. Duh. So, anyway, hey, maybe one day I can find Amanda Conner and have her do something on here or somebody else associated with that book. So that's just a sampling of some of the foreign language comics now in my collection. I do have lots more, and maybe one day I'll have occasion to show you some others. In the meantime, I'll have a party with these, and we'll see how that goes. I'll make some inquiries about this this curious thing with the Daredevil thing with Terry Austin. Maybe even reach out to the artist themselves. I think we're Facebook friends. So anyway, I hope that was the least bit interesting for you, and that you'll come back and take a look at more of this stuff. Thank you. Bye.